Good morning and welcome to our talk this morning. You're really welcome. This weekend, if COVID-19 wasn't part of our landscape, I would normally be at the Greenbelt Festival. So I've got my, you can just about see it, I've got my Greenbelt Festival t-shirt on to mark that, and a really massive welcome to everyone this morning, but especially if you're joining us from the Greenbelt Wild at Home Festival that's been going on this weekend. Whether you come in your pajamas or fully dressed, whether you've been camping or had a warm bed for the night, everyone is welcome here. So we've got a really difficult text before us this morning. It's quite a hard message to kind of tease out. So let's do that together this morning, and I'll begin with the reading. So it comes from Matthew chapter 16, verses 21 to 28. From that time on, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, God forbid it, Lord, this must never happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things. Then Jesus told his disciples, If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world but forfeit their life? Or what will they give in return for their life? For the Son of Man is to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay everyone for what has been done. Truly I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. So, I was struck by the bit in the passage which talks about followers of Jesus taking up their cross. Not surprising, perhaps. Taking up their cross in order to be those who follow Jesus faithfully. And the thing that struck me particularly as I was reading this was that it was said by Jesus before his crucifixion, before his resurrection, before the symbol of the cross became what it is for Christians today. The symbol of the cross for the disciples hearing it from Jesus, hearing Jesus say, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me, was entirely without the maybe perhaps slightly romanticized picture that we have of the Easter story. To take up the cross was to fail God, to fail the God of the Jewish people and succumb to the Roman oppressors with all their gods, to signal that their gods were in fact there to stay, and there wasn't going to be a wonderful restoration of God to the temple in Jerusalem in the way that they envisaged. To take up the cross was to die, to carry your own death on your shoulder, and to do it alone. To take up the cross was shameful. The crucifixion was the symbol of the Roman Empire and how the Roman Empire were going to bring peace to all the earth. To be crucified was to become a sign for that empire, that they were, after all, the victors, and your broken body the spoils. And so I wondered what the equivalent was for you today. What is the sign of oppression that feels like that to you today? Because to be told to take up the cross by Jesus had no sniff of glory about it. It felt like death. It felt like saying that they had abandoned God, that God had abandoned them, and that they were carrying the stench of their own death and decay around them. The disciples must have been completely horrified. Completely horrified. Perhaps they were hoping for victory, for life, and for glory. But these are hard words for us today. But I wondered what it would feel like if you were today experiencing all those things. If you were feeling that you had failed God, that somehow it was your job to restore God to Jerusalem, whatever Jerusalem is for you, whatever that symbol means for you, and it hasn't happened, or worse, there doesn't seem to be any hope of it happening. Or if you are carrying death on your shoulder and it doesn't feel very glorious or honourable, it just feels like death. It's entirely alone and it feels like God has left the building. Or if you are ashamed, not only have you failed, but your failure is a visible sign that God has lost. The game is up and you are the score sheet. If any want to become my followers, they must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. The disciples that Jesus was talking to could not in their wildest imaginations have seen what the cross was to become. That the vehicle, the sign and propaganda of God's demise and their demise would in fact become the way God chooses to save the world, to save them, to save you. And so my wondering today is about what you are carrying and whether it feels like a failure, a death, a shameful thing. And that the story of God with all these things is that they can become the vehicle through which God brings victory, life, and glory. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. All who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves shall be exalted. So it may not be in your wildest imagination that the cross you are carrying right now will be transformed, that it may become the place of abundant life and resurrection, that it may be the way that your life becomes a sign of God's presence in this world. But God's imagination is bigger than yours. And every day might possibly be Easter Day. Amen.